Wow, welcome to season 3 of the Poppin' Off Pink podcast.
Yeah.
I'm creator and co-host Chi.
I am Kimber.
We're super excited, super chill, but super excited. As you can see, we're in a yoga studio.
Yes.
And we just...
Namaste.
Yeah, this is the premiere of season 3, and we spent the summer mixing it up a little bit. Shout out to FemRain.
Yes, the FemRain, this incredible all-women's media outlet extraordinaire. Shout out to Vlada. Shout out to Annie. We had an incredible time with them.
Amazing time.
It was a blast.
And
that frosé was pretty good.
You know what? They ran out of the frosé, so I had to have some Henny concoction.
Oh,
I don't quite recall, but I had a lovely time at the bar with the people that were there. So shout out to the folks at Hangar 11.
Yes.
In Kew Gardens in Queens.
Kew Gardens, what a gorgeous place. It was like an oasis. Blown away.
Kimber, how would you describe your summer?
Well, I'll say it had a healthy dose of everything I wanted. I'll just put it like that.
Awesome.
What about you?
I'm looking forward to fall. If summer was nice, it was just a lot of things being demanded of me, and the fall for me is not as hectic, so I'm actually looking, and also my birthday's in the fall, so I'm looking forward to all things fall and cool and pumpkin and yes.
I'm a fall baby too, but screw you sweater weather fiends and
boots and sweaters.
You layer wearing.
Shout out to
gotta
give a huge shout out to Dear Lovely Chaos.
Of course.
Who I'm sure is listening or watching. First of all, she was killing it at the FemRain event, and she has an event coming up on September 21st. It's a pop-up.
Yeah.
So make sure you check that out.
First official Lovely Chaos pop-up.
And I think we did a cipher.
What do you mean you think we
did a cipher,
yes,
right?
We did
okay,
a cipher.
Yeah. So we did this really awesome fucking all-female cipher in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's on our YouTube, so I know a lot of y'all are not in New York, so you need to catch up. You can watch it on YouTube because you weren't there in the building. But I mean, just amazing women and talent, and not just the contestants, but the folks that perform. We had AQ the God perform.
AQ the G.O.D. He killed it. Nia, K the lady.
Lady KB.
They just tore it up. Everyone was amazing, and just gives me hope. Because with today, it's hip hop, the shitty hip hop.
As we get started, we're Women Talk Hip Hop at Poppin' Off Pink. And speaking of women, we have a phenomenal woman here in our midst.
The glorious,
amazing, gorgeous, talented Adele.
Yeah, she just completely transformed.
Right? Why am I growing all this hair? I need to get it. I need to get it cut. And we're right by a nail salon. This is like nail salon, hair salon central where we're at right now.
And I want to make sure
nice long layers.
I pronounce your last name correctly.
Pham.
Pham, okay. Adele Pham.
Thank you for asking. So a lot of people say fam.
Right. Well, I'm from Chicago, so I would want to say fam.
That's almost
for a different reason.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of nice, right?
But Adele is...
I'm part of the fam, too.
Yes. Yes, you're part of our fam. And she's an amazing filmmaker. One of the reasons we begged her to come here was because of a documentary I became aware of, and Kimber became aware of, called Nailed It.
Yes, Nailed It.
Which we're going to get into in a minute. But before we do that, please tell our audience more about your background. I know you grew up, you're here in New York, thank goodness, but you grew up in Portland.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I went to Oakland, went to Mills for college, and I moved out here to New York when I was 21, and I've been here ever since.
Best time to be here.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
You know, the gentrification and everything. Kind of torn downtown up, but
when New York was real.
Yeah, but even then, I think, you know what I mean? I think I even missed, the window for late 90s.
Oh yeah.
Hip hop, New York.
Yeah.
All through the night, but late 90s I was close and I went to college, so I didn't get here until like 2005 really.
I feel like that's a good time. You
But
know?
Of course.
What specifically brought you to New York?
A boy, and just
of course.
escaping the West Coast too. I mean, I lived in Oakland for a while, and then I was in like Silicon Valley, being a PR person for some software, and anyways, there was some bill, like Alex Spitzer was governor at the time. He was coming, he should have kept coming down on Wall Street, but he had to slip and get caught up with the hookers. And
oh my God.
that guy, all these men, get the fuck out of here.
Shit.
I kind of blame him for the 2008 recession, that Obama had to walk into.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of it went to hookers and coke and Papa
Well, he was on the right trail, but then they just destroyed him when they found out, about Ashley Dupree. You guys remember all this?
I remember Elliot Spitzer for sure. I don't remember all this.
This was like the odds.
Fazed or surprised by any of this.
By men? No.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious though, because I have no line of sight. I have family in California, but what was it like growing up in Portland?
Portland, from what I've seen, is very gorgeous though.
Yeah.
It's very
That's how
You see how it's raining right now? It's
Yeah.
like that pretty much all the time. And then like there's 2.5 months and the summer is gorgeous.
Oh.
The coast, it's cold water though. It's beautiful country.
Mm-hmm.
But it rains a lot and it's homogenous. And my next film called State of Oregon, you can watch the short if you Google State of Oregon and my name, Adele Pham, it'll come out. It was released by Field of Vision. Anyways, it contextualizes a contemporary hate crime committed in the rise of Trump and with the state's exclusion laws, which its constitution was based on.
So would you say, based on, that's,
Yeah,
I watched the
okay.
short, so I'm familiar with, I'm not going to go into the details of the tragedy. However, I'm curious, would you say that kind of characterizes part of what you experienced growing up there?
Just not knowing the history of where you're from, and I think where you're from, and that characterizes pretty much everywhere in the United States. So that's another parallel allusion that I'm making in the film. So there's this whole other side of the state that they legally excluded Black people. The only state in the union to do that. This was before this, like a few years before the Civil War. So southern states weren't excluding Black people. They needed them to be, It's an interesting history. It's kind of known as like white nationalist territory. People go to the Pacific Northwest to kind of disappear into militias sometimes. Do you remember when they the Bundy guys in Oregon when they took over that native wildlife preserve?
Yes.
These sorts of dudes. I grew up in Portland, okay? That's like the city for the state. But just like New York City, as soon as you get out of the city, bam, red.
Did you?
Like, I don't even think Hillary won Oregon by that much when you got outside of the city.
Did you personally experience racism growing up there, or your family?
Yeah, that's not part of the short, but that's what's compelled me to tell the stories of people of color in Portland this whole time, because it's known as liberal white bastion, is known as Portlandia, but people of color's histories, how they survived there, is completely erased.
Right.
In that stereotype, there's a reason that there's so many white people. But something I found out recently is that Vietnamese Americans are the highest minority group in Oregon.
Oh, wow.
I was surprised, like even more than Latino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that all comes from the Vietnam War, and that's my father's generation, first generation. So he didn't start out in Oregon, but he ended up there. He done Job Corps in Northern California, in Santa Ana, I think. And,
Wow. Well, we definitely want to get into the Nailed It documentary, and if you watch the show more than you listen to it, then you definitely know Kimber is known for her nails.
All day, every day.
I was taking a picture when you guys were transitioning to my interview. Sorry, go ahead.
Before we get into the actual meat of the documentary, can you just help us understand what led you to doing this documentary?
Well, I'm happy. Like I was saying, so I always wondered why so many Vietnamese people own nail salons, work in nail salons, why my dad wanted me to go do nails when I graduated from high school as a side hustle, right? And as I grew older and woker and kind of really started to explore my identity, I wondered what this stigma was all about with the Asian nail salons, and that I kind of break you off on later in the film.
Right.
First, I just want to invite you in, but it's always in the back of my head as an Asian person too, you know? And then even my own class consciousness, like how I used to think of the Asian nail salon and what I think of it now, you know? So it became an interesting window into my own culture.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting it to go as deep as it did. When I watched it, I thought, oh my God, like, I go to the nail salon religiously and I love to spend my money there. It's like a casino for me. And now I'm gonna have to watch this like expose about like how these people are being mistreated. And you know, I was trying to like soothe my conscience, like, you know, I asked Leo if he had lunch today or if he wants to take a break, you know. And then I started watching it. And I was just really blown away by how it's a multitude of things for Vietnamese people. It's income, it's traditions in the sense that it gets passed down.
Right.
And, you know, it's basically a way of life. And the fact that it originated from freaking Tippy, of all people, that blew me away.
Tippi Hedren.
Yeah.
The first 20, I think, is how they refer to the women that Tippi Hedren's personal manicurist trained them. It was so much to unpack there. First of all, just me personally, the nail salon I go to here in New York, it's Korean. And I have a really good friend who's Korean, and she always talked about her dad's salon and her, you know, helping out. Like, she helps out every weekend in addition to her full-time job. So I didn't make the connection to the Vietnamese because of her, and then my own nail salon is also owned by Korean, right? So that was just like, okay, interesting. Didn't know it started with the Vietnamese. And then the woman who, I guess, trained the first 20, she was very candid.
So bitter.
Yeah, she's like
a little beanbag.
She was very candid about her own anger. Yeah, she did say she came around, but she was very open about how she was angry originally, I guess, when this kind of blew up.
Though. Like, you know, it pisses me off. That's one thing that I noticed when I was watching that. Eventually, it came up that there was like the whole, what was the term? Resentment, refugee resentment. I thought that was fucked up. Like, why is it that Americans have this whole, you know, la-di-da-di kind of, oh, thank you. Like,
I want to hear this. You hold this mic.
Like, why is it, I don't know.
I think this one's not working. No.
Okay.
No, I want to hear this. This is the point.
But, I don't know what it is about Americans that makes them so, you know, like, la-di-da and very lackadaisical and disinterested in holding jobs, because I feel like everyone else gets the picture but us, if that makes sense. Like, immigrants come here with it in mind that they need to feed their family. That's what I heard through most of the documentary, that everyone wants to feed their children, that everyone wants to, like, make sure they're doing what they have to do. And then the Vietnamese essentially made the most of it and pushed it as far as you possibly can, which is possible for every aspect, every job that's out there, be it gardening, garbage disposal. You can really capitalize on anything
if you're organized and work together.
That's only when it becomes profitable is it when it becomes a problem. Like, that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like the war on drugs too. Like, oh, now we're giving a fuck about Colombia and people falling out because they're making billions of dollars pushing coke. I mean, it's not.
Hey, well, they say that about the regulations in New York a little bit too. I mean, I was glad that in the New York Times expose, Price of Nice Nails, that the emphasis was put on the worker and their health, you know?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that think Regulation is really based on eradication, gentrification. Like, why do we need all these nail salons? And it's not even as profitable a business anymore because of just the added costs of running a nail salon.
Yeah, I was surprised to, well,
but yeah, people resent it when non-English speaking anybody. When black people did that too. They would not like that. They don't like that. I mean, they did that with so many black towns during Reconstruction.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's just different.
Even Central Park, I mean.
Right.
That was, it was obviously, it wasn't like slavery ended and then, people got money falling from the sky. Actually, the slave owners got reparations. And so to be able to buy land in New York at that time, and even what happened in Rosewood in Oklahoma, and then it was like, to your point, every time you make enough progress, then it's like, oh, actually, we're going to raise this land, and you got to go, and that type of thing. But the $7.5 billion figure that was quoted in the film, I was shocked. I didn't know it was like such a. I mean, I know you say it's harder to make money now, but that's huge. It's a $7.5 billion industry.
Yeah, look how many nail salons there are, and you think about what you need to supply that salon, and the Vietnamese have a big stake in that.
Mm-hmm.
And the turnover, like the client turnover is crazy too.
Right.
Because they can do up to maybe 10 people in
definitely a full day,
4 or 5 hours.
I have to say though, I was very entertained.
Thank
the
you.
segment, just in general, but especially the segment on Olivet Robinson.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And Charlie Bolt teaming up this black woman and this Vietnamese woman in South LA and like the man trap.
That was so cute. And I love that they also highlighted the importance of, communication and just humanity as a whole, like what those services do for people and the connections that you can make. Like, girl, I just love what the fuck you did. Like, I really was not.
Yeah.
If you go to naileditdoc.com, you all can stream and buy the movie.
Nailedit.com.
Naileditdoc.com.
You can rent it for $5 on Vimeo on demand.
She's been there. She's been there.
But you know what?
$12 and
you stream it forever.
Even though it's like this rich history, I honestly, personally, I think one of my other favorite things that you did was weaving in your dad's personal story.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I really love that because it's like you're making the film, but you're also kind of sharing your own family history as well.
And how closely related it is to you. Do you feel like, because I mean, when I look at it, it kind of makes me think of like, that storyline where a kid is like born into what could be considered a lineage of like, let's say musicians, and then they want to be, like a corporate person. Like, do you feel like you, A, dodged a bullet, B, avoided a tradition, and C, for you, because this was also mentioned, was it ego versus necessity for you? Like, do you feel like if both your parents were Vietnamese refugees that
I'd be up in that salon because my mom would be Vietnamese. My mom's like a hippie white lady who like never got her nails done, and there's a little bit of regret there because it was more about not speaking the language almost. Like I didn't want to go up to Tacoma, Washington, and like live with these relatives I barely knew from Vietnam who were like killing it in the nail ball game. Right. But in a way, this is unspoken in the film. Maybe my dad wanted me to learn Vietnamese and get closer to that side of myself. And that came later with self-awareness, like getting woker, like I said, and joining the student organizations. And I mean, that really just continued through Oakland, of course, and then landing in New York. Also seeing that, wow, this is the only place where the Asians are Korean, realizing most Americans don't even tell the difference. They just think we're all Chinese.
Right.
So there was a lot going into this film, and I think that's why there's so much in it, because I'm contextualizing it with personal history, war history, refugee history, immigrant history, and then, of course, look at what's going on right now, It's
also like super dynamic and things you just wouldn't guess, like if you just were to think about it, like the Tippy Red connection. But then you talked about this in your NPR interview also, the creativity of the black women in these neighborhoods that I think in the film they said, they would go to work and they're like, oh girl, you got snakeskin nails? Like, the white women and some of the Hispanic women were like, okay, where did you go get your nails?
Right.
And that connection, but also all the different friendships, right, throughout these different salons between blacks and the Vietnamese. And then you touched on later some of the tensions that exist outside of the nail salon, which I also wasn't expecting as I was watching the film. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership, but also like the tensions?
Excuse me. I mean, the truth is just stranger than fiction, and I had always wondered personally, like, how did the Vietnamese get in black neighborhoods? That's a stereotype, there's like the Asian nail salon in the black neighborhood.
Right.
A lot. You see it a lot. Yeah. And lo and behold, that's what it was, because Olivet, who's an African-American woman, Charlie, a Vietnamese refugee, they lived in South LA,
Yeah.
So that first salon that they opened was like across the way from the Hollywood racetrack. I mean, it was where they came from.
Yeah.
And Olivet met Charlie through doing her nails. Olivet was doing hair at the time, so in the industry, and just had like an emergency nail run, bumps into Charlie, and it's just like kinship, they're friends, right? And then what I get to in the
English
film,
too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Olivet's a special person.
Yeah.
Someone wrote a book about her recently, actually. She's working on that one. She wrote a book about Charlie. Anyways, she is a Christian in the best sense of the word, so she doesn't really see that difference between people. And she's hilarious, so it's like comfortable. And Charlie was open in a way. I mean, this is somebody who had survived the Vietnam War, infant. I mean, Charlie's story, there's similarities there.
Yeah.
Historical, even if it wasn't precisely in Olivet's lifetime, she understands what it is to be a refugee because of her black history. Interesting.
And speaking of black history, while I was watching it, I was telling Chi, I couldn't help but think about black people while I was watching it. The way Vietnamese people and seemingly every other, group of color seems to be able to band together and create, generational wealth and stability and community. And I was beginning to consider if it's because the time in which the Vietnamese people went through what they went through with the war and escaping the country, if that's what it was, is it because our timeline goes so far back and we're not really able to pinpoint, trauma or an incident that we all remember and we all can relate to and we all can feel it necessary, excuse me, to band together and hold on to our culture. Is that why we struggle with it?
I think what you said is a big part of it. When we did band together, we were killed in mass.
Right.
And so it trains you. I think there's a quote from Dave Chappelle that says the person isn't crazy. So we're not crazy. We are crazy. But why, right? The environment is sick. And so there was a part in the documentary, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was the government changed their policy to be more helpful towards the refugees. And that was key. They still had to deal with a lot of backlash from, white folks that were okay, they're making too much money. But I think that was key. There was no wide scale, government, okay, let them keep their homes. It was quite the opposite. Businesses were burned down, and not just the Oklahoma City one. It happened across the United States. But now I feel in general, regardless of what background you have, more people are aware of the history.
Right.
Thank God. Thank God for social media, because it's not because of the education system. And I think we realize that it benefits all of us when, people have opportunity. And, ironically, black folks are lacking in opportunity.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, going back to state of Oregon, I didn't know that history of Oregon being a white-only state, essentially, until the internet, and me wanting to understand, what was that all about?
Right.
Yeah.
Being they just decided to casually keep that from us.
Education.
And exactly, I think it's exactly like that Reconstruction era, right? So at that time, black people couldn't remember slavery, right? Have that galvanizing sort of memory of a trauma. And and then everything that happened to black people during slavery. Like, these are Vietnamese people almost coming together as family, the women working hard to bring the ones who got left behind, to bring them in and survival. And so the nail salon has always been a survival net. And for the next generation, the economy going the way it does, and just kind of, I mean, it's still a survival net for second generation Vietnamese people. Like, I was just saying, I should have learned how to do nails, because I can work these editorial shoots and make my, say, $1,000.
What about
the grind?
The men,
American grind is getting crazier.
How did the men become so, or from your perspective, how did
Because they followed their women.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of the culture, and it's interesting because my characters, I was attracted to men and they were the ones that talked to me, but at the end I try to make it clear, like, this is a woman's business founded by entrepreneurial Vietnamese women. It's almost like in their DNA a little bit, like being small business owners.
Yeah.
When you go to Vietnam, you see that for sure.
That's the lifestyle. It's like the culture.
It's not matriarchal, it's still patriarchal. I feel like we let men get away with a lot, but like one of the characters said, when you come here as a refugee, the men are threatening and the women can kind of go under the radar a little bit. And they picked up the pieces and brought men into it, let them feel like managers or whatever. But a lot of guys just do nails, and I showed you.
The man does my nails.
And they're amazing. Exactly. Tell me about Leo.
He's the shit, is what? He's the fastest, baddest.
Let's do a close-up of this later.
This is like a glow-in-the-dark gel.
Now, where's he from?
I actually am not sure, but
Kimber, you gotta cultivate that relationship.
Really talk, you know?
I feel like he's probably Vietnamese. He could be a Chinese
Like, we make little jokes and that's it. And he just says, "What design you want today?" And I'm just like, "Yeah!" Like, that's just it. You know?
Ask it, because New York's funny because it has historically been run by Koreans. I just think they stole the
I
idea
am
from
willing
us.
to bet that he is
Vietnamese stole the idea from each other. Like, oh wow, these nail salons are successful in black neighborhoods. We're going to take this across the country.
The price war
across the country
aspect was hilarious too. I think she was like, at one point it was like $8 for Fanny. I'm like, what?
in my dreams. But I'm willing to bet that if he's not Korean, Malaysian.
Yeah, I don't think
I used
he's
to
Korean.
work for a Malaysian woman, and a lot of like the language that I hear them speak, it sounds familiar. So that's what I'd be willing to guess. But they're all like really like there's like a nail salon in like every block almost.
Exactly, that's how it's.
And I'm pretty sure they all know of each other. And sometimes like if you don't come around for a while, they'll like look at your nails and be like, "Oh, where'd you go?"
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I know them.
Yeah.
Like they're really, it's really like a kind of shadow game, kind of creepy little organization over there.
You mentioned that it's still a source of survival and for some second generation, but there was, this aspect of some second and third generation Vietnamese look down on nail salons.
I would say that would be me before I got woke, before I went to college or whatever. But I'm surprised still, how Asian America hasn't necessarily embraced this working class identity. So, I don't know. We have crazy rich Asians, but that's not what I've experienced in life, right? So even with Vietnamese people, they love the illusion, right? So I think there will always be class consciousness because this is America, and it matters how much money you have, project. But now people do associate nail salons with making a lot of money too. So it's a really interesting, changing kind of stereotype.
I think it's just because of like the act. It's service.
Body work.
Being on a lower level and touching someone's feet,
right.
They see it as it's lowly. Whereas in my mind, I used to say like a big asshole, I just want to be, Chinese. Like I just want to work really hard and make money and have my own business and go home and just be happy. Like I feel like they have the ideal lifestyle if anything. I feel like they've got it figured out. Yeah, they've got it figured out.
Right, and then with a lot of these nail salons, like my cousins who did really well, they all live in the house together, so you sharing food, talking about lunch, like everybody eats the same lunch.
That's beautiful. What's so wrong with that?
See? So this is me coming around all these years later, like, oh, what is that? That makes you look down on your own culture.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to things now that I firmly believe that were told to me by the elders in my family, and I was just like, oh, that's just old school thinking. And then you circle back, you live a little, you experience life, and you're like, oh shit.
That's a funny documentary.
Yeah, like they were right.
They were right. That's the title. We're on to something.
Dad.
It just comes with experience. But to your point, Kimber, about just like the creativity, there was a person, I think, profiled in the documentary that took it to the next level, like had the more upscale nails and was like involved in like all types
like
of designs and
vegan,
things like that.
yeah.
And there was the vegan aspect.
Yeah.
So it has become, in a lot of places, like a source of artistry.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
why should we let it go? The only way Vietnamese people won't be in it anymore is if immigrants stop coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think those kinds of upscale nail salons would be enough to sustain the whole community. So
They're
a lot
empty
of it
most
is
of the
like,
time.
Yeah.
okay, there you go.
Expensive
Because too expensive ass, and then you know you can go down to Leo.
Right.
Do the thing, put the thing to the thing, and you know
Okay.
you guys are like.
And he does acrylic too.
That's what they don't. That's what they don't get. They don't get that. And it's funny how acrylic, when it's in an Asian salon, is poison, but when it's in a white girl trying to be doing her thing with the long stiletto nails, it's another thing. Kawaii nails also changed this. Japanese and their nail art.
Mhm.
I feel like in the aughts, before social media really even popped off, like that kind of changed the aesthetic to not just being like this mom and pop Asian nail salon thing,
Yeah.
but like high fashion.
Yeah.
And before that, you know, all of the black celebrities that even black women turning it into nail art.
Grace
that
Jones.
wasn't really
Flojo.
Flojo, that's what it is.
She was the one. I mean, that's like the shape, that's everything. And you see, like back in the day, because you know, I've done my research, and you know, Barbara Streisand and Cher have like long acrylic nails early,
Yeah.
right? But it was really working class black women going into the salon and then
just
snakeskin
dragging
and Charlie and all of it. Oh, they're man trap.
How long did
Basically,
it
when
take
you know the marathon where Nipsey Hussle got killed, it was kind of
Yeah.
just like that kind of situation.
It's
right
funny
there.
though. I want the men.
And the Black Panthers were actually right around there too. The Los Angeles.
Right around that.
Yeah, it's like this is so funny. It's,
It's
all
like,
like,
what an exciting time
by
to be
81,
alive.
no, but it's
Drugs.
like things just don't happen anymore.
Nails, things are like,
Things happen
Set
on
up some tables,
hashtags.
like, let's go.
Yeah, everyone just has crazy ideas, and then
Mhm.
it's like things spread like in a healthier, more genuine way that just brings everyone closer together. That shit doesn't happen anymore. Now it's just Instagram and like awkward glances and
Everyone basically poor.
yeah, poor. That's one way.
I need to get together a little bit more, and you know, unfortunately, the man trap nail salon model was copied, but
Mhm.
you know, not the multicultural dynamic between an American black woman and a Vietnamese refugee woman.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So why
rare,
not? You know,
so-
that's when you say things don't happen like that anymore. I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that in a way too. We're just like, oh,
Yeah.
they're them, I'm me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Da da da. But in my time, I've met black nail techs who have come up inside of a Vietnamese salon, and those relationships are really dynamic
awesome.
too. You know, so it's not all negative at all. You know, but that's what we definitely focus on in the media: the acrimony, right?
Yeah,
The
the
stereotype,
drama.
the drama. But if we understood more about each other, it wouldn't be like that
Yeah.
as much. Nails make people crazy.
They make
chemicals
men
and the
crazy,
women.
right? I mean, I want our male audience to weigh in. You guys are always very vocal, so we'll hear from you in the comments. But I mean, there's a reason why they named the salon or the chain of salon Man Trap, right?
Trying to catch a
Men
man.
are very aware of our
Visual
nails.
people. Oh,
They're
okay.
visual, and they may not admit it, but they like to see, you know, all the different variations of the nails and,
And
the
then
design.
there's
Yeah.
those irritating ones that like to say they don't want to see anything. They want you to be barehanded.
Oh, I haven't heard this.
I hear all kinds of.
I heard Young
bullshit.
Thug said something in his new album
Yeah,
about having the short nails, and there was like some Twitter backlash or what have you. He said his lady has to have short nails. I can't make this stuff up.
Because
Right.
he likes to have long ones. Or-
Exactly. There you go.
Exactly.
That's
Like,
that's
what
the
the
irony.
not?
But I mean, in hip hop, right? Like Kimber's not a hip hop head, but if I'm looking at her, this is what you want. You want the long nails,
Yeah,
right?
especially right now.
It's part of the look. You're not
Well,
going to come out
always,
as a female rapper and not have the
And
long.
that's all
You
black
say long
women
nails,
too.
I think of Trina. I think of obviously Cardi with her nails, Nicki. Like it's part of the culture of females in hip hop also.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. From
It's
late
a
80s,
staple
early
item
90s.
now. You have to have a lace front, you have to have long nails, and a leotard.
Not a leotard.
I mean, that's like the shit now. Ever since Beyonce did it, I feel like that's all they wear. Like,
What's this Kim
leotards.
Kardashian with this old school Destiny's Child like leg cutout look for her skills? I'm like getting Tina vibes. One leg cutout.
First of
It's
all,
horrible.
Kim Kardashian turned
We were
Kanye
one-legged.
into an
That's our
armchair, and
favorite
I'll never
person.
forgive her.
What do you guys feel about her getting these black people out of prison?
It's cute.
It's cute.
She claps. It's Kim Kardashian. Like,
I think that the deed is awesome. It's a great example for other celebrities or people who consider themselves celebrities or influencers. I don't spend time thinking about the motivation behind it. I think too many people spend too much
Because
time
I
on
could
that.
say it's a fine way to show that you just, like you're proving that you don't just have a fetish for.
Right, and I think regardless of what the motivations are, this is the same person who a few years ago was like, oh, I wasn't aware that there was like a racism issue.
Right.
So to go from that to specifically getting black folks out of prison is,
It's cute.
it's a big
and then
evolution.
you mix it with Kanye in the White. It's just too crazy for me.
Kanye just has a church now. Like, he's on a different path,
Yeah, she got advised better.
He's
guy.
just,
Yeah.
Well, what kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to mostly older music, rap and hip hop, be like 90s. AZ's probably my favorite rapper.
What? She said AZ.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
Oh, she's opening up the
She
Spotify.
got- okay.
Show us your black
All right.
Well, because you guys talk about hip hop, so you want to see my hip hop.
I want to see everything.
You want to see everything so much.
I see a Christmas playlist.
This is workshop.
on here.
This is for it's embarrassing. It's for karaoke. I haven't done. Do you guys do karaoke ever?
We should.
I try to avoid it, but I can sing, so I should
Oh,
be
Kimber,
more-
we have to do karaoke.
Yeah,
now.
maybe you could.
I just take it way too seriously.
Reggae Queens.
Ohio
Okay.
players, I see. Marvin Gaye. Okay, all right.
Remember this documentary about this guy Rodriguez? That documentary director killed himself, but it's a very good documentary.
What do you wake up to? Maybe that's a better question, music-wise. Like, first thing you're gonna listen to.
You have
I
ska?
mean, it really changes, honestly. Probably jazz. I'll probably go to sleep to jazz.
Mhm.
And, Fela. I
There's a
love
lot going
Fela.
on in this
Roy
podcast.
Ayers, sure.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love Roy Ayers.
Just bees and things and flowers.
Yeah, here's some Southeast Asian jazz.
Now that's okay. I've never heard of that, so definitely gotta check that out.
Mulatu Astaki.
I love him. Ethiopian
It's been a
jazz.
while
Yes.
since
I put my
listened to
dad
him,
on to
actually.
him.
I'm really into Brazilian jazz. I'm obsessed with
I have
that.
not heard that.
See, we should share, because I'm always
No,
looking
let's
for new
share.
music. Oh, okay.
Share.
And here's Chuck Brown. I have him in jazz.
So what was your earliest?
I love Herbie Hancock. Donald Byrd.
Who doesn't?
Donald Byrd. I could listen to Donald Byrd, just like put it on, let's do it. Yeah.
What's your earliest memory of hip hop? I always think that's fascinating.
I mean, it's more R&B.
Like the
Loving
first
it was
artist.
the SWV for sure. Tape.
Okay.
But I wasn't like a huge hip hop head growing up. I mean, Jay-Z was huge, Nas was huge. I like Nas because I
Yeah.
like his rap and I thought he was cute.
I've ruined Nas's name on the show.
Yes, I just thought about that.
No, he's not very good live.
It'll never be the
Jay-Z
same.
could kill him in a live show any day of the week. But I don't like Jay-Z.
Fuck Jay-Z.
So
Need a
tell,
secret.
tell us about Free Fam Jr.
Okay, do you think that Tupac is a bammer?
A band?
Just kind of, like almost like a male hoe a little bit.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like something I'd want to be affiliated with. And that's not usually a good thing.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
He's more. I always look at him as more of a revolutionary poet
Bammer, I like
type
that.
person.
Start saying that.
But I mean, I
Or
know
like the guys. I
he
like
did a whole song about getting around, so I mean, there's that.
I feel like he is, but in like a more romantic way. Like he'll be like, you know, I had a vibe with her. Like I feel like for him, it's not like, you know, oh, she had a fat ass. I feel like he would have like emotional connections with different women, and it just turns into sex, and it's like very short stints of like you know, fake love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a Tupac-y thing.
and not the best beads, and you know.
Yeah. Like, I don't feel like he'd be like, oh yeah, I heard, like, she gives amazing head, so, it's like, you know.
But my brother Chuck Baum, Tupac is probably his biggest influence.
Oh.
Hip hop, yeah.
So is he? Would you consider? I mean, he's obviously a hip hop
So
artist
my brother,
in his own right?
No, he just, you know.
He just kind of did that for the film.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, not for the film. He just did that song, and then I made the music video for him years before it nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
But all the things that he's addressing is almost like his documentary. I like Game too. So, you know, songs can be like documentary as well. And what he's expressing is his experience, his struggle at that time.
Right.
As a working class person, and it's different for us because people don't even view us as Vietnamese a lot of the time. So when I hear that song, him too, yeah, it's just a struggle with identity and fairness.
This question's been like eating me alive. What led you to filmmaking? Like, I've always loved documentaries. I feel like they're kind of cruel in a sense because you're just like compressing years of someone's life into like 1 to 2 hours. What goes into that, and what drew you to that?
Probably when I saw my first non-newsy documentary. It was called Crumb, about Robert Crumb, the cartoonist. I grew up near like a second-run theater, so I saw a ton of movies for like $1. This is my like back in the day story. $1.50.
Everything was so
and
dope
that
back then.
yeah, I know, right? Like she doesn't have it. Now that place is like a pizza pub theater. You have to be 21 to go. So my brothers didn't even get the same experience. I was babysitting in the neighborhood. I was like making money as we were watching the movies. Like, let's go.
Come on now. Take me.
I know kids don't go outside anymore.
Everything
Just like
sucks
have
now.
silly kind of games.
Everyone's just on their
tricks
fucking
on
iPads.
people.
Babies know how to use phones.
My baby
It's
knows
all-
how to use a phone.
How old is your
Fucked up.
baby?
She's 19 months old.
No. But as you were saying, just God.
Yeah, so when I first saw my first non-news, non-60 minutes documentary, I was like, this is really fascinating narrative, you know? Like, this guy's story is stranger than fiction. And I just love hearing people's stories, and I always think, oh, that'd be a good documentary. That'd be a good documentary. So, it's something, even what I like to watch, what I like to read nonfiction, women fiction.
That's awesome.
And it's a way to interlope culture. Like my own culture, other people's culture. So I am a culture in that sense.
That's the only kind there should be.
Yeah.
So I just want to go back to the State of Oregon documentary, and you included some of the family members that from the, what was the name of the young man who was
Barnell Bruce Jr.
His mother was in the trailer that I watched. What drew you to do that? I know you talked about the history of Oregon being like whites only and that type of thing. Was that part of what drew you to do that documentary, or?
Yeah, because I already have that information in the back of my mind since the aughts. Like, I've always wanted to document people's of color experiences in this white space.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2016, August. There were all these hate crimes. There was an uptick in hate crimes. Trump was, the front runner,
Right.
Republican Party. And it was just wild to me that this story from my hometown went viral, framed as a contemporary hate crime, a contemporary lynching. And I started investigating it and found out other things about it, but it didn't necessarily surprise me that it happened. Because I grew up there and I remember a time when we had a neo-Nazi problem. My own father, although it wasn't a hate crime, was shot and was left in the street, broad daylight. So this is a cold little city.
We just need like an international 3-day ass whooping. Like just from the top to the very bottom, everyone just
Well, the
needs
cops are
their
probably in
asses
cahoots
kicked.
with the Proud Boys. Like
Yeah.
you saw that
just
Proud
like
Boy
a
rally.
neutral party of elite fighters to just walk through and just beat the pride and stupidity out of everybody. I feel like, like sometimes it's like a spanking. Like it just sets you right, calms you down, puts things in perspective. I feel like that's just
Portland needs to be reset, and most
reset.
places do, right?
Yeah.
It's just interesting. More and more things are coming out of that space because the whole
internet.
I mean, not that it's on par with the violence, but like I remember reading a New York Times article a couple months back around issues at the Adidas plant or what have you with black workers, but then Kanye and Pharrell and like all these people who are prominent in hip hop and black community are used to sell these shoes, and they do all these partnerships.
Yeah.
But then when you look at how they treat especially their black employees, it's like night and day.
What do you think?
My dad worked in the shipyards, and he said the black people, for real, got treated worse. Black women doing the craziest jobs, So you can imagine how that would filter up to Adidas.
So in coming out with your documentary now about Portland, what do you think about the show Portlandia?
I mean, I like it for what it is. Like, some of those sketches are funny, right? But I had that idea before them.
Oh, wow.
I was like, well, how would they have no black character, no person of color? That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Just like the woman on the side, black woman on the side, the Asian women, just like watching these people go nuts.
Yeah.
That's the way it is a lot of the time. And I wanted to capture that in the film that I started in the aughts, the summertime vibe. It's hilarious. And there's some sweet parts of the city that, I'm not going to completely hate on. That are weird and funny, but it usually turns dark. And then you see the houseless problem and the mental health problem. And
right. Like, I feel like they don't really
from the beginning.
It's just like a sketch.
Exactly. They don't have to. That's the thing. They set the tone. So you're always the one outside like, why do I feel weird?
Well, how
because
long
they can ignore it. You can't ignore that shit in a place that has more people of color, because we just, we'll bring it, it'll rise to the top. But if you're trying to, like, negotiate life there, I don't know, things change, too.
So where can people eventually see the full documentary, or when
Well, you can watch the State of Oregon short now,
Right.
which was released by Field of Vision. It's about 10 minutes long. The feature we're working on now, I filmed the trial for the murder of Larnell Bruce Jr., and its verdict, its outcome, sentence. And I'm contextualizing it with a lot of stories. One of them is personal. My father's shooting. Also, the beating death of an Ethiopian refugee immigrant named Mulugeta Sarab by neo-Nazi skinheads that happened less than a mile from where I grew up.
God.
And not knowing this shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of informs a lot of what's going on right now. And now I'm putting in context of gentrification. So where Larnell died matters.
How long does it take you to get all of the information, like, for your documentary?
I mean, I need a benefactor. I just need, like, to be fully funded because
Don't
that
know.
takes the... You want to do it, you want to research it to the max. So I really want to win this next grant that I'm applying for to have a paid researcher producer on my team. I don't want documentary films that are just based on emotion. It needs to be, sustained facts. And that's the cool thing about making a documentary that spans over the past century, because all the information could be there to be collected in such a way to tell a narrative about how we got from 1854 to today. And people are still being lynched. It's just different. Oppressed, systematically erased, excluded. But because, hopefully things are really changing, and I'm following the campaign of Teresa Rayford. Shout out to her. She's the character in my film. She's an activist. She started Don't Shoot Portland, and I consider myself kind of a quasi-activist, and she's like, I swear, the only activist I really look up to. Like, wow, she does the damn work.
And Don't Shoot Portland is, can you elaborate?
So she started Don't Shoot Portland in the aftermath of Ferguson, when there was like a national uprising for Black lives, and has just sustained it and changed it, and it's a lot of fucking work, you know. But I don't know. She sees the need for that for Black people, for her people in Oregon, where they're not represented.
Yeah. Wow.
And because it's, I guess, I saw this in the short also, it's like someone was like, well, it's because it's happened in Portland, right? Because that's not where you think of Black America.
Right.
And so the coverage wasn't what it should have been also because it happened in Portland.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that, Teresa and Don't Shoot Portland, they're the reason why it was even charged as a hate crime. And they demonstrated, at City Hall and stood up for Larnell's human rights, and we've learned in years subsequent that the hate crime laws there are completely antiquated. Like, an individual can't be charged with a hate crime in the first degree, a felony. So that guy, Jeremy Christian, that stabbed those two men, killed him on the train because he was about to attack a Black teenager and a Muslim teenager in a hijab. He didn't get charged with a hate crime because he acted alone. So
it's only when it's two or more people.
Yeah, and that to me relates back to the idea of lynching,
right?
That's what they were trying to prevent at the time. That's where they were at in that state when that law was enacted in the late 80s. So the murder of Mulugeta Sarah by the neo-Nazis, that was the first time a murder was charged as a hate crime in that state.
I just like the abuse of like elastic clauses. Like what is it? This is why I just continuously like side-eye the fuck out of politics and just avoid government-related things and paperwork at all costs because it's infuriating. It makes no sense how right and wrong can just become so skewed based on personal hang-ups and weird feelings,
How do you feel about the current political climate, and then we're coming up on another, presidential election here?
Yeah, so following Teresa Rayford, she's running for mayor of Portland. That election will be decided in November 2020, where we'll also see if we get another 4 years of Trump. So I feel frustrated too. I feel like you really have to find your local leaders, and that's also what this film is about. Like, a lot of us run away from our hometowns to New York because we want to be in an environment where there's people of color. You could disappear into a group of brown people, right? You couldn't do that in Portland. But at what cost, hate crimes on the outskirts of town, I can't afford anything in my hometown because the gentrification jacked everything up.
Right.
Trump narrowly loses, what should be, it's considered a blue state. But as soon as you get outside the city, it gets redder and redder, and people of color are,
I guess we just have to wait.
Missing throughout time. So that's what.
We just have to wait.
I mean, it's sad.
We talked about that on
It's the trans woman who just got found hanging in the park in Portland. Suspicious.
We just have to wait until they move to Mars. Hurry up. Figure it out.
Will they destroy? Amazon burning right now. Let's terraform the Earth before we terraform Mars.
The lungs of the planet is literally
really
hanging in the balance.
For cattle, that's what I'm hearing.
So I'm going to be hosting an end of the world drug party. Because I know it's coming. So.
Wait. An end of the world drug party.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Molly.
Yeah.
Coke, anything you wanted to try, heroin, it'll be there. Edibles.
In time for Halloween, or just
when the apocalypse is coming, I'm stockpiling. It's going down because I'm not with any of this shit. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's like in so many ways, it seems like we, on one hand, we live in a weird time because I see things that I'm like, oh, we're learning, we're evolving, and then I see literally the opposite, and it's all going down the same track together.
Metastasizes because there was never any kind of reparation for what they did to the Native people, what they did during slavery, and so we're just living in different visions of that. So things do change, right?
Yeah.
But then you forget the thing that established the thing in order for you to change.
And that's why I want to
people need to be engaged in their local politics.
Local politics is key.
Allegedly.
And it's very difficult that we vote, and I've talked about this before too, for judges, and we don't have any idea of their record, right? So I could vote for a judge that could lock away my cousin, because I went eeny, meeny, miny, moe, or I voted.
Well, now are you on the internet when you're voting?
I was on
judges real quick.
Yeah,
fuck.
but it's still hard to find any information. I did that the last time at my local election. I was like so frustrated. The most I could find was a list of the judges and like, you know, their credentials, which doesn't tell me their record. I need to know their record, right?
Like in
500 times more likely to.
And I feel like people who come here from other countries are definitely more woke in this regard. But we get so caught up on the presidential theatrics, right? And then most of these people don't vote in their local election. I'm the opposite, and a friend of mine got pissed off because I said I don't vote in the presidential election, but I vote locally. And I'm like, you realize which one has more impact on your day-to-day, right?
Absolutely. Because when it all boils down to it,
do both.
These people,
well, are you saying that because the electoral college? Like
that's why
I'm a big part of it. We live in New York.
It doesn't even matter, honestly.
If you live in Ohio,
none of the elections
Florida,
of my life have mattered. So that's another point. Like even though Oregon is, I come from a blue state. Even like I never voted in one of these damn red states.
The conspiracy theorist in me says none of it means anything.
Yeah.
All they do is talk in circles and yell at us, but the decisions are already made. Whether we think we're making them or contributing. It's all just, it's all just bullshit.
Yeah, I felt that way. I just choose to be optimistic right now.
I'm glad.
But I'm kind of on that page as well. And you know what? My brothers are like that too.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be optimistic. You have a baby. So I'm sure.
I hope that baby will survive. Amazon burn it.
I'm not just optimistic, but active, right? When you have like a kid that, is like a 20 years from now, she's going to be an adult. It's not just that you have to be optimistic within the context of, what you know, but also you have to be active because you are contributing in your own way to her future.
I want to be active and like bitch slapping a couple of like political
I would like to
figures,
actively find an island that I can just kind of slip away to.
If
like
possible.
Jeffrey Epstein?
If possible.
Not that island. Not that island.
Become one of them.
No. Well, we've talked about Nailed It. We talked about State of Oregon, but leave our viewers and listeners.
I'm more like Bono than Jeffrey Epstein.
Leave us with some parting thoughts and whatever information they need to know to be able to follow you and your work.
And plug your GoFundMe because I want you to make more things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a Patreon.
Yeah,
so
Patreon.
My name's Adele, like the singer. I know I'm older, but whatever. People name
Adele is named after you.
Exactly. No, that would be like that. Adele Pham, Pham. That's my name. Nailed It. I mean, really, you just have to Google Nailed It. Vietnamese nail salon will come up. My website, naileditdoc.com. There you can stream the film. My new project, State of Oregon. I don't have a website up for that, but I'm live on Instagram for Nailed It Doc.
Okay.
Nailed It DOC on Instagram. Watch my film. I'm going from nail salons to hate crimes.
It's incredible.
It's all related.
Buckle up.
Get ready for the ride.
Kimber, you want to leave us with some thoughts?
I mean, I'm happy to be back for season 3.
Because we were like not doing anything all summer.
Oh, good. I wasn't alone. Shit. That's over.
I was painting a lot.
Yes.
Shout out to Open Mic Renegades. Yes. I've been doing a lot of live paintings. Like I'm on like a little 2-week breather right now, and then I'm gonna be back at it. So I've been painting like almost weekly, and just getting my life together to say the least, and smoking a lot of weed and drinking as much as I want. But it's great to be back with season 3. I've been waiting for this hot girl summer fuck shit to end, and yeah. I mean, there isn't much to say. I'm just full of like disappointed mom sighs, and I'm just, wanting to travel more because I feel like I'm just hoping and praying that what I see on Instagram and in front of me isn't all the world has to offer, because how it's looking now, 20, 30 years down the line, it's going to be pretty grim. A lot of you enthusing about this Popeye sandwich will be working there at the rate we're going. I just want to
robots
better.
gonna be there.
Yeah, oh God, definitely beam me up. I'm not down
Andrew
with that.
Yang.
That AI shit, I'm not with it.
Well, the common thread that I see through everything we discussed and even through the documentaries is evolving, right? So the story of the Vietnamese coming here and making this happen and even evolving to the extent of not just nail salons, but, you know, whole schools, right? Beauty schools. And we have a lot of work to do, evolving as far as what's being covered in the State of Oregon documentary. Us all being here, I feel like, is proof of, you know,
Evolution.
the human effort to evolve as well. My summer, like I said, it's been full of obligations, all good stuff. All good stuff. Shout out to my babies. Very proud of both of them.
Achieving kings.
Yeah,
From
so
their
I don't want to embarrass
queen.
them, but you know who you are. I am looking forward to a little bit of a breather starting in about a week. And I do want to plug my hometown. If you're listening, I will be in Chicago September 5th through the 9th. Not doing anything particular, but we'll be checking you guys out. So as always...
Can I shout one more thing out? I forgot.
yeah.
Nailed It is screening in Orlando at the Global Peace Festival at the LGBTQ Center. We're doing a pop-up nail salon.
Oh, wow.
Before, so you can come down and get your nails.
I love
When is
Florida.
this happening?
Yo, I
Orlando.
love Florida.
But when?
September 18th.
Oh, soon.
Let me say that again. Let me say that for the edit, you know. So Nailed It is screening at the Global Peace Fest in Orlando on September 18th, and the screening's at 3 p.m. at the LGBTQ Center. But come at 12 to come get your nails done at our Nailed It pop-up salon. Kelly St. Pham, my co-producer, is gonna be there.
Oh,
you
wow.
know, he's like Leo. He's been doing nails
Awesome.
for 25 years. You love him.
I'm down. I'm with the shit.
Where did the concept for this come from?
My brain.
Okay.
And Kelvin loved it. You know, he's been in the beauty industry for so long. So I went to a lot of trade shows, which you see in the film.
Yes.
And I just had this concept of putting the film into a museum space, and
Wow.
I saw that coming together
I love
through a
it.
pop-up salon, kind of
Yeah.
like what they did back in the day. You just need a table, like 2 little chairs, you know, some acrylic powders, some liquid. Let's go.
Yeah.
We don't do acrylics, we do a traditional polish. And it's sponsored by. Morgan Taylor.
I secretly like the smell of acrylic.
Oh my God.
Especially
I
when
don't,
walking
but
down
that's
the
a whole
street.
other podcast,
Yes.
the whole thing. I
Well,
mean-
one of my best friends lives in Orlando, so I'll definitely
Oh, please do. Okay.
tell her to check
I'll
that
email
out.
you.
We are extremely thankful and feel very blessed that you came, blessed us with your presence.
Honored. Truly honored.
And if you are just listening to the show, catch up.
Quickly.
We are in
Thanks.
season 3, and this is where women talk hip hop, but you're always going to get a perspective on the culture and things like what we talked about today that you're not going to get from your typical hip hop podcast. So we thank you for our listeners. Share, and huge thank you to Adele Pham.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for finding me.
And we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, hoes.